Interest rates are reaching new peaks that were last reached more than 15 years ago.
Alright, some more bad news if you're saving for a house.
Inflation was very high only a few months ago, at levels similar to those of the 1990s.
We have a grocery prices problem in Canada.
Canada has never been so indebted. And we must say the US is not better.
So apparently, the United States is about to go broke once again.
We seem to be on the edge of the abyss. What we'll do? And such a low unemployment rate has not been seen since 1969. Today I'm going to add clarity to all this, because it's honestly overwhelming. What brought us where we are today? And further in the video, I will share you a refuge value that could potentially offer us a 2-digit return, despite instability.
In COVID, new COVID-19.
COVID.
It all started with COVID-19, during which the government, or rather all the governments in the world, in order to avoid a crash and then a recession, decide to stimulate the economy with a number of measures. It's the fault of the COVID! They print without limits, and what it causes? Inflation. The government gets into debt, and artificially stimulates the economy without allowing the invisible hand to work, giving the economy free rein. Simply, the best picture is that the economy catches a cold, and the first symptom is inflation. There is more money at stake, so there is more demand, and prices rise. It is then a crucial period. Prices cannot rise too high as consumption decreases. We are looking for balance in all this. In addition to government incentives, there's also another very important aspect that has led to inflation. Inventory or supply of goods ready to be sold in the United States had reached low levels, similar to those encountered during the terrible 2008 financial crisis. So more demand, less supply, a real explosive cocktail. And to prevent a worsening situation where it would be difficult to buy a simple apple, governments raise interest rates to slow down consumption. So, are you telling us that the state's looking for a solution to a problem it created? Yes, the state has, in my opinion, created a bubble which has been inflated artificially by capital injections, and now is trying to calmly deflate it while avoiding any sudden movements. The government is a funambule. It is raising rates to avoid excesses, which is necessary in some cases, but if it increases them too much or too quickly, we risk a collapse, a recession. Well, okay, now that we understand a little better the context that brought us to today's situation, what is the link to the performance of assets, of stocks and bonds? There exists a fundamental investment rule that states that investors always seek to have the greatest return with the least risks. Thus, when interest rates are diminished, as since the financial crisis until the pre-pandemic period, stock buying is encouraged, and this creates a form of a bull market, a rising stock market. And when interest rates are increased, as since the COVID, it's bond buying that is incentivized. But you probably ask yourself, so Jeremy, why did bond funds have poorly performed? To remain competitive, the yield of all government obligations adjusts according to the going rates. Thereby, if the return increases, bond prices must be decreased. It's exactly the same principle with stock market securities for dividends. If a stockholder earns a revenue, dividends of $2 per stock, well, if the stock price plummets from 100 to 80, if we measure a proportion between 2 and 100 and 2 and 80, we clearly see a yield difference. When the price is only of $80, a return of $2 is significantly higher than for a stock at 100. We get our money's worth. Imagine if you would have millions of stocks at 80 versus at 100. It makes a great return difference. And what is astonishing is that the interest rate skyrocketing coincides precisely with the beginning of the S&P 500 collapse. We can't state it beyond any doubt, but when there are too many coincidences, sometimes there aren't. There is, on the other hand, a troublemaker who comes to confuse the game. Did you hear that? It's inflation, and the problem with that is that it doesn't mix well with bonds, because these are fixed income securities. When an investor buys a bond, he becomes a lender, a kind of bank in the sight of the company that promises a return in exchange for capital. But as the rise in the cost of living accelerates, it all starts to eat up. Clearly, an investor who has a 5% return on his or her investments may be more or less satisfied with his or her return depending on the context in which she is. The Federal Reserve considers an average inflation rate of 2 to 3% acceptable.
2% inflation target.
2% target.
But already there, the investor's return, taking into account an increase in the cost of living of 2%, is narrowed down to 3%. But if you take a different context, as we've seen recently, with sustained inflation at almost 6%, the return is now negative, minus 1% on its investments. We have arrived at the long-awaited moment, the promise. I will reveal to you one safe investment right now, according to me. But before all, I insist to warn you that I'm not a financial advisor, certified by any organization. Not even the AMF. Thus, what I will share you currently is an idea. You must thereafter achieve your own research to take your good decision that will be fruitful, both financially and regarding to the knowledge you'll harvest. Oh, I can't wait to find my voice again. Currently, I have a 5% of my portfolio in bond funds for 4 reasons. Indeed, the inflationary period that we've lived in the past few years now melts noticeably, as we can see in the Canada report. Secondly, the mushrooming of interest rates slows down. Even Bank of America awaits a decrease in interest rates from 2024. Thirdly, 2 possible scenarios. If there's a crash, well, I expect a rate diminishing phase to stimulate the economy. Second, if there is prosperity, well, inflation is presently held by the reins. It is under control. Thereby, I think it may be possible that interest rates be maintained or slightly decreased. And fourth reason, since 3 years, these funds deemed to be safe and stable investments have performed about minus 25%, even if being reputed, as I just said, as secure, balanced investments. As I mentioned earlier, when interest rates increase, businesses owning bonds suffer from capital gain losses because they already own some, and because to maintain the same yield, the bond's price diminishes. Personally, I keep those bonds for 2 years minimally. This is my investment horizon. Nay, more if the current economic situation continues to worsen, and if rates continue to climb. Thank you very much to have listened this video. Don't hesitate to subscribe just below, and to hit the like button if you've appreciated. Take care of yourselves. Ciao, I'll rest my voice. I'll take a little of lemon because now I'm no longer able to continue.